Greetings, ladies and gentlefish. I have teased you with games from this thing for long enough. I will now actually bring you my review of the SU-100M1 Tier 7 Russian tank destroyer. Now, if you listen to a lot of people's opinions on this, you are going to get, I think, quite a negative impression of this machine. And I don't personally think that's in all ways fair. I have what I think is quite an unusual opinion, in that I actually quite like this tank. It has its flaws. Hopefully they will become apparent as I talk about the tank, and some of those flaws are pretty damn glaring, but it's not a bad machine. And it's just received a buff, so caveat, the footage I'm going to show you was recorded in patch 9.1, whereas as of patch 9.2 this gun has received a buff to its rate of fire. Wow, it really has received a buff to its rate of fire, damn. Oh, sweet! Okay, anyway, sorry. That's really... wow, okay. I hadn't realised the buff it had received was quite that substantial. But we'll get on to that. So, this is the... let's just have a quick look at the tech tree first. This is one of two Russian Tier 7 tank destroyers. So, you're at the Russians, you go through the MS1, you decide to go down the tank destroyer line. In fact, I'll actually talk about the grind first and then about the split. 81 doesn't take much XP to get through. At its tier, you have a garbage view range, bad armour, but a really good gun. SU-76, your view range gets better, you still have a good gun. Can be a little bit frustrating to play, no gun depression. Yeah. But decent tank at tier 3. At tier 4, you have arguably one of the best tier 4 tank destroyers. Really good DPM, really good gun, great camo rating, good view range, mobile. It lacks things like gun depression, but it's a good machine. You get through to tier 5, so none of this is a painful grind so far, in my opinion. You get to tier 5 and you get the SU-85, one of the most well-known tank destroyers, based on the chassis of the T-34. It's a great little machine. It plays like the Stug for anyone that's gone down the German line. Your view range is garbage, your armour is just good enough to bounce some shots, you have a good selection of guns, and you're very stealthy. And that's kind of the hallmark of the Russian tank destroyers. Good guns, generally speaking, reasonable mobility, really stealthy, garbage view range. Then you get up to the SU-100 at tier 6. This is basically an SU-85 but slightly upgraded, so you still have armour that's just about good enough to bounce some guns, especially if you angle it. You're still stealthy and your view range is still garbage, you're still fairly mobile, but you start mounting some serious firepower. And you have a choice between a 100mm gun or a 122. Yes, that's the 122mm gun you get on the KV-1S. Yes, it's a better version of that gun, but of course you don't have the armour, gun depression, mobility, or a turret to back that up. But it's still a very, very capable machine. And then, at tier 7, the line splits. So the original Russian tank destroyer line is this line through the SU-152, ISU-152, Object 704, and Object 268, sorry. And generally speaking, these machines pack some massive guns, are very, very stealthy, are kind of blind, their view range is pretty garbage, but they're all about the alpha damage, the ambush shot. In contrast, the second line of Russian tank destroyers, and this was added later, SU-100M1, SU-101, SU-122-54, and Object 263, these tend to focus more on DPM, medium tank guns, or at least smaller caliber guns than the top ones. And often they actually play a bit more like a turretless medium tank, which we'll get onto. So basically you have the choice between derpitude and ambush damage versus DPM mobility, sort of. So, SU-100M1. What about the grind on this particular tank? Well, when you originally get it, it will be completely stock. None of these modules carry over from previous tanks, unless you've already gone down the Russian medium line. If you've gone down the Russian medium lines, then this second engine carries over from the T-34-85. Oh, in fact, actually, sorry, I've been lying to you. It carries over from the SU-100, sorry, so you will have this second engine. Everything else will be stock. The gun is unique to this tank, the top gun anyway, but you don't have to research this if you don't want to. The radio carries over from the T-34, so if you've been down the Russian tank destroyers, oh, and the SU-100, so the radio will carry over as well. I'm just lying to you terribly, aren't I? So, stock configuration, radio, engine. You will not have the top gun or the top engine or the top suspension. And what order would I do these in? Well, that's a good question. I would say that, if memory serves, I think you need the suspension before you can mount absolutely everything on it. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. What's the weight limit on this tank? It is 34 with the upgraded suspension and 32.2 with the non-upgraded suspension. So actually, you can mount every module on this tank without the suspension. So my recommended upgrade path would be 1, get the top engine, 2, the suspension or the gun, and 3, the other one. Or you could do suspension, engine, gun. It really doesn't matter what order you do it on in this tank, to be honest. You can make a case for it a number of different ways. But anyway, it's fairly obvious you want the top radio, the top engine. I mean, what does this give you? 600 horsepower compared with the 520 and 500. Yeah, this is a nice boost in horsepower. You want the top modules. But how does the top gun differ? Because they both appear to be tier 7 100mm guns. So if you have a look at them, it's fractionally heavier, your aim time gets better, your accuracy gets better substantially, damage and penetration are the same, your rate of fire goes up. So basically you aim faster, fire faster, and are more accurate with the top gun. And this gun really does make this tank. It is worth getting, even though you strictly speaking don't need it to get to the SU-101. In fact, actually, you don't need any of these modules to get to the SU-101. You can just unlock that directly. I would not recommend doing that, but you can do it if you want. So, let's have a look at the actual stats of this tank. 830 hit points. That's about par for the course for a tier 7 TD. Okay, fair enough. It weighs 32 odd tons. Fair enough. 600 horsepower engine, which is quite a lot. Speed limit of 50 kilometers an hour. Traverse speed of 34, although this feels faster, I must confess. I'm surprised it's that low, I thought it was more. Still respectable, but not amazing. Hull armour, 90 on the front, 75, but we'll, 45. We'll talk about that more in a bit, because the armour's actually quite interesting on this tank. I'll talk about the gun in a moment. View range 360, which is okay, but nothing special. And signal range 525. The Russian mid-tier radios suck. So what you have is quite a mobile machine here. So let's just have a look at the guns. I know I've already quickly brought these up, but just to compare the two. As I mentioned, you get an upgraded accuracy, rate of fire, and aim time with the top gun. And that's really useful because 175 penetration at tier 7 on a tank destroyer is not fantastic. That's the same penetration you got at tier 6 on the SU-100. 175 isn't brilliant. And so this means that you do often have to aim for weak spots, which is where the good accuracy comes into play. So it's good that it has that and the good aim time. The good aim time is very important because this tank has a very narrow gun traverse. You know, the amount that you can move the gun left and right is very, very small. Its gun depression is also woeful. It's something like 2 degrees. Gun elevation is really good, but gun depression and gun traverse are really bad. So that aim time is very important because you will be moving the hull an awful lot. And so the faster that you can aim, the better, obviously. What else do we have about this tank? It's worth mentioning the size. Let me compare. Here's the ISU-152. There's the SU-85. There's the SU-100M1. It's a very low profile machine. It's very stealthy, very sneaky, which is really quite nice. Crew skills and equipment, well, I just used my standard pauper setup, toolbox, binocular telescopes, camo net. If you wanted to fit this tank out specifically and keep it, what would I recommend? That's a damn good question. Alright, gun rammer, more DPM is good, you want more DPM. If this could mount, it looks like it can't. If it could mount a vertical stabilizer, I would say that, but it can't. The buff to aim time you could go for, but I actually think it's a bit redundant. So I would probably go for gun rammer, improved vents, and binocular telescope, or coated optics, but probably the binocular telescope. And that's because of this thing's... No, we'll get onto that in a second. Sorry. Crew skills. Sixth sense on your commander, repairs on everyone else, basically. There are some other options you could do. So for the driver, preventative maintenance is not a bad idea because you lose your engine an awful lot in this. You also lose your driver an awful lot. Maybe you want to take safe stowage on the loader, but really sixth sense and repairs. Possibly camo, but I would say repairs. Because, playstyle wise, how does this thing pan out? Well, it's a weird one. So, generally speaking, you want to start off using it as a traditional tank destroyer. You know, engage from distance, double bush, all your standard tank destroyer fare to keep yourself alive and keep the engagements long range. But as the game progresses, you can be a lot more aggressive with this. You can bounce shots, in particular from lower tiers, with your armour. Your armour should never be properly relied upon, but with some angling and some wiggling, you can get some amusing bounces. And you can... So in the later stages of the game, or if you feel you need to, you can really play this like a turretless medium tank, which is a very nice option that not that many tank destroyers give you, and it kind of opens up an additional playstyle. So your classical tank destroyers tend to be either A, really campy, sitting at the back, firing from a distance, long-range fire support, or B, assault guns that were designed to attack the Siegfried line, for example, have awesome armour but are very slow and ponderous. This gives you a different playstyle. Long-range support, but can mix it up. And I really like that. I find that an awful lot of fun. And I actually find this tank more fun than the SU-152, which is generally people's preference, the other Tier 7 Russian tank destroyer. I had more fun driving this. And so I don't think it's as bad as some people would have you believe. Now, the bad gun depression is a pain. The fact that you seem to have to sacrifice your engine and driver every game is a pain. I mean, this is a small tank. And with 4 crew members and all the equipment crammed in there, it means that shots that do penetrate you often tend to do critical damage, which can get very frustrating. And so, you know, standard fare with your repair kit, med pack, and fire extinguisher, I think is the best way to go. Okay, I've prattled on long enough in the garage about this thing. Let's have a quick look at the armour scheme and then I'll show you a couple of games. So here we have the armour scheme. Here is the SU-100M1. Boom, here's the armour. So, where are we looking? Well, you can see there is a single strip of 130mm of armour running right along the front here. Just along here at that sort of... at that join between these two plates of armour. Then, from the front upper plate, the front lower plate, and the superstructure are all 90mm thick. But, you then have to take into account the angling. So the best angled of these three, from most shots, is actually the lower plate. So aiming at the lower plate of this tank, a lot of the time, is a bad idea, because you will just bounce right off. The upper plate is 90mm, plus that bit of angling makes it 120 if you're facing this tank straight on, and the superstructure becomes just over 100. So you can see the armour on this tank isn't fantastic. If we just go away from that superstructure toward the edges, then the armour value does shoot up. And you've also got your gun mantlet here, and around here you can get armour values of 200. There's like 362 somewhere, it's ridiculous. But basically, this is not an amazingly well armoured machine. The sides are 75 odd millimeters thick and the rear is trash. But you can angle your tank between shots. And if you do so, you will obviously make it more survivable. So something like this isn't too bad, depending on what sort of penetration guns you're facing. Wiggle around, try and get them to hit your gun mantler, and you can get a lot of bounces on this thing in the right situation. Now this, as I want to keep saying, the armour on this isn't amazing. Just bear that in mind. Don't be surprised if you get penetrated. It's not like a Jagdpanther 2. Or Jagdpanther 2. You can go hull down and be almost invulnerable. It's just not like that. But the armour's good enough to make it work. Now, as I say, the rear is trash, and in fact, actually, this hatch is even worse, and this section. So if you're trying to kill one of these things and you're behind it, well, high explosive round through this door, sorted, done, and you'll wreck them, absolutely wreck this tank by doing that. The top of it is trash, so artillery, have a field day, essentially. But yeah, that's the armour. The armour on this thing is respectable, if not absolutely outstanding. There aren't any glaring weak spots on it, but then there aren't any glaring strong points on it either, if that makes sense, apart from bits of the gun mantlet. So yeah, that's the armour on this. So let's just go and have a couple of quick games. Here's game number 1, and you can see that we are bottom tier, i.e. this is a tier 9 game. And the SU-100M1 kind of doesn't like tier 9 games. The alpha damage isn't particularly good, the penetration isn't particularly good, although that's mitigated somewhat by the good aim time and accuracy. So you have to pick your shots carefully. And it can be a bit awkward. This is an encounter game and we're here on mines, and when you're in this sort of situation you can normally do one of either two things. You can either be very aggressive and try and be the person who's spotting everything and putting yourself in a position that you can get shots on people's flanks, but if you don't have a turret that can be very awkward, and more often than not that will just backfire horribly. Or you can be the supporting fire, and you just have to bear in mind that you need to pick your shots carefully so that you can actually penetrate your target. So we're going to go with option B in this game. We are playing the classic camping tank destroyer. And you might say, boring, but frankly, if you think that's boring, you really shouldn't be playing tank destroyers in the first place, if we're going to be honest. Now, when I say camping, perhaps I should redefine what I actually mean. We are not going to just sit at base and be useless to our team. In this sort of position, especially because this is an encounter game, we do actually have the potential to get shots on people. I mean, this position actually effectively overlooks the cap circle. So we should be able to put fire into people. We just lost our scout, which is, you know, kind of irritating, but meh, there we go. So just seeing if one of these guys is going to poke his head out. Oh, AMX 1390, had a blind shot. T43 there. Put a shot into him and pull back, because if you can make it so that you can't see through the bushes, it means the bushes are far enough away that their camo bonus won't be lost as soon as you pull the trigger. Panther, put a shot into him, but you'd see, we can see the Panther, he saw me, and that shot bounced, but it meant that we were spotted. I don't have sixth sense on this thing at the time. And that 1390, it looks like our blind shot did hit him, because, you know, he's lost some health. And it looks like he's lost about the right amount of health. So there's that Panther, but the Panther seems to have decided that discretion is the better part of valour, which is not a terrible idea, and he has backed off. And there you can see the terrible gun depression on this tank. Ugh. So we seem to be running out of options on this side of the map. There's no one really to shoot at. So I'm trying to see if I can get shots on different targets. But it's kind of awkward. So we're going to swing our attention round to the cap circle. Now this T-30 is engaged with an IS-8, and that looks like a side shot at the IS-8. And if only I'd let that shot fully aim. Ah, well, never mind. So he's 440 metres away, and that was a penetration. Now I don't know, I can't really make out from this view if that was actually into the side of his tank, or if that went into the side of the piked part of his nose, which at this angle will be flattened out. But either way, penetrating hit, and it looks like we're keeping him tracked as well, which is quite nice. T-30 puts a nice big shot into him, and we leave him on 83 health. One more shot will finish him off, and of course we all know what happens as soon as one more shot will finish them off. You miss, you bounce, and you just can't kill him for love nor money. See? There we go. So he's left on 84 health. Great. There's a thin shot into the side of that Panther's turret, but we managed to make it nonetheless. We bounce a shot there and the Panther pulls back. Bounce another shot. And another one. Ooh, that one takes out our tracks. That's from the T-43, and that one hurt. So we repair our track, and the T-43 takes it out again. And hopefully... Well, I was worried at this point. I thought I was going to die, but as it is, it seems we're no longer spotted, and they don't bother having any more blind shots at us. Hurrah! So, can we get a shot on that T-43? Oh, I thought he was going to get into cover, so I took the shot early. If I'd not taken the shot early, I could have waited for the gun to aim, and I would have actually had a shot at him. Ah, well, never mind. Them's the breaks. Oh, IS-8 again. Have we got a shot on him? Similar deal. I thought he was going to get in cover, so I took the shot early, whereas I actually would have had time to fully aim. Oh well, never mind. Them's the breaks. We're winning this game 10-4, and there we go, I finally managed to take that guy out. One dead IS-8. That's a tier 9 heavy tank who's bit the dust. And there's only 4 of them left at this point. And we've still got most of our team intact. They've only killed 4 of us, and there are only 4 of them left. So there's one shot into the AMX. He comes out for more. Second shot into him. That shot misses. Ow. Ow, and we finish him off. So there's the Borsig, T-43 and T-20 left. T-20 is at G4. He's dead. The T-43 was at about sort of F1, F2, something like that. And the Borsig is probably camping at the back, like I am. So AMX finishes off the T-43, and that just leaves this Borsig. I very much doubt I'm going to manage to get any shots onto him. T-30's asking should we cap or not, and I say, you know, I very much doubt it's going to make any difference. I think that Borsig is dead, regardless. He puts a shot into the IS-8, but he's not going to survive. He's just going to go to Tank Destroyer Heaven. And there we go, that was the game. So despite the fact that we were bottom tier, it was a tier 9 game, we still managed to do some good, put some shots in, do some damage, and came out of it with over 2,000 damage, which is not too shabby. So have a look at the post-battle results, and then we'll get on to game number 2. Here we are with game number 2. As I said, this is a top tier game. We are on Lakeville. So this is tier 7 game, sorry. We are on Lakeville, and we're going to see what we can do. This is a standard game, so it's not encounter, and I don't think there is an assault mode on Lakeville. Although I guess if you did do an assault mode on Lakeville, it would probably be attacking spawns top and bottom and trying to assault the town, I guess. So we're in a tank destroyer, and hence initially I'm going to try and take up a long-range support position, providing fire support into the town. I'm not going into the valley because, basically, I don't know what the KV-1S is whinging about. The game is fairly balanced, but never mind. Maybe it means the light tanks need to be fiddled with a little bit. Anyway, IS, T1 Heavy are both moving across. This M5 Stuart, on the one hand, he's getting some good spots in. On the other hand, he's probably going to get himself killed. So I do want to take advantage of the spotting that he's doing. So, we just lost the Stuart. I managed to put a shot into that Stug for his sacrifice. See if I can pick up the kill. No, the Stug had a couple of brain cells to work with, and instead he ran away. Now, it's at this point, if I had a little bit more gun depression, I could possibly be a bit cheeky. But I don't, so I can't really. And that's the thing. That scout ended up dying for very little gain in the end. We got the idea there were a bunch of people heading toward the town, and I managed to get a damaging shot into a Stug 3, which is a tier 5, and this is a tier 7 game. Now, it doesn't appear that this tiger knows where I am, which is kind of amusing. Oh no, now he's putting his gun toward me, so I run the hell away, and there you can see, you know, we made our sacrifice to the gods of RNG, our driver copped it. There we go. We have a blind shot, and move further back. So far, the only casualty has been our scout. Oh no, we just lost our artillery. He got counter-batteried by the enemy artillery. Fantastic. That's why, generally speaking, you want to move after every shot if you're playing artillery. And you're not playing it at like tier 4. We put a shot through, somehow it goes high and bounces off the side of the T1 Heavy's turret, which is bad. And we just lost a Hellcat and a KV-1. So we're losing 0-4. This is going so amazingly well, and, you know, of course, all of our tanks have decided that what they really need to do is push through the valley rather than going to the town, which means the town has been completely overrun, and they are moving toward our base, which is a little bit problematic. So I take up a position to try and defend our base. You know, someone probably should. And everyone is running away. Well, that's really helpful. So, fine. I'm not going to sit there and just be fodder for people to shoot at. Screw that for a game of soldiers. We lose another one, making it 1-5. And there's a heavy tank pushing down the valley in the centre of the map. I mean, this is just a bit of a mess. So I'm trying to see if I can get any shots on the valley, very conscious that those people who've pushed through the town are going to make themselves apparent any time now, and there's the T1 Heavy. Now, he's only the tier 5, but he has an IS friend, and there's probably going to be some others pushing around as well. So they're being spotted by someone else, so I pull back to a point where I'm probably not going to be spotted if I fire my gun, or I shouldn't be. I put one shot through the lower plate of the IS, but it looks like he's going to get into cover before I can put another shot in. But apparently they can see me because they just fired at me. And I put a shot ineffectively towards that KV-13. Oh, there we go. Put a shot into that KV-13. Looks like he might have the stock turret. If he does, my commiserations. I've played that thing with the stock turret. And we're now losing 3-5, which is an improvement, but there we go. Our gun takes a hit, and so I'm just backing off, trying to give them the hardest shots possible at me. You're basically fighting a rearguard action here. Our 88 kills their Churchill, and there's now a couple of them on low health, which is nice. So KV-1S and IS are over here. If one of them pokes their head around the building, I can take it off for them. We're losing 6-7. 7-7. So we've managed to pull it back, which is nice. But for some reason our team still decided they need to push through the valley, and there's a dead KV-1S. See if I can reload. And there's a dead IS. So I just bounced a shot from something, probably that KV-13. And now, just trying to make sure that the T1, sorry, is the only thing that can hit me. I slightly misjudged it, and I think the Tiger could hit me as well. And I think that KV-13 also has shots on me, but I can't see him, so that's of limited use. Put another shot into the T1 Heavy, and he decides that discretion is the better part of valor, and he doesn't want any more to do with that. And you can see that the armour on this thing isn't absolutely astounding, but in the right situation you can definitely make it work. I get tracked, put a shot into the Tiger, get tracked again, Tiger misses his shot, I put another shot into the Tiger. I don't actually know who's going to reload at the two of us, but, well, Panzer Soufflé, finishes the Tiger off, but our own Panzer Soufflé gets ammo racked by that T1 Heavy, who, despite the fact that he's a tier 5, is actually doing a respectable job. So I come around here, take off that T1, and that leaves an M6 and a KV-13 in this vicinity. There's a Hellcat somewhere, there's their artillery, and we're capping their base, and suddenly this game is actually looking like we're going to win. So our IS just killed their M6, there's still that KV-13, there's still a Hellcat somewhere, and they've spotted the enemy artillery. And we just captured their base and won. And in that game, oh, just took out their artillery, well done to the KV-2. In that game, it was a much more of a close range affair. I got a respectable amount of damage and ended up picking up a steel wall, I know, in a tank destroyer, but there we go. Defender, and one other award that I can't remember. Might have been Confederate or something. Anyway, that was game number 2 when we were top tier, and you can play it a lot more aggressively. The fights can be much more close range. So, have a look at the post-game results, and then we'll just flip back to the garage for some concluding remarks. So what do I think about this thing? I think this machine is not as bad as many people would have you believe. It's not everyone's cup of tea, and there's no guarantee that you will like it, but I think it's worth a play. And, well, I think it can be a lot of fun. I mean, I've played something like 200 games in this while I was grinding through it. You can see I acquired a Mark of Excellence in that time. I got 3 Mastery badges, sorry, 3 Ace Tanker badges in it as well. Yeah, I had a lot of fun driving it. I'm not going to keep it because the bad gun depression is just such a limiting factor. And you do find yourself getting really frustrated sometimes that you just can't bring the gun to bear on your target without revealing your entire tank and getting shot to all hell. So I'm not going to keep this tank, but I had a lot more fun in it than I did the SU-152. And I think it's definitely worth having a go in and playing and seeing how you find it. You may well enjoy it as well. Or you may just hate this machine and want it to die in a fire. I'll leave that up to you. Yeah, just bear in mind that it doesn't really like tier 9 games. It prefers to be top tier where it can be a bit more aggressive. But there we go. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that review, or possibly found it vaguely informative. I know someone was inquiring about when I was going to bring out a review of this thing. So here we are. If you did enjoy it, by all means please feel free to catch some of my other videos and or subscribe to my channel if you're not already. And as ever, I wish you very happy hunting on that battlefield. Ciao ciao.